What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. And so before I continue with this channel and also this series, I just want to apologize for the large delay or the huge delay, especially regarding this series on React and FastAPI. It's been a very long month, but I'm back, and yeah, so we'll continue from where we losing my words. We left off in the last video. And that was where we created the CRUD endpoints for creating our leads, getting our leads, deleting them, all that, which included our authentication. So this is just like if I just refresh, yeah, our endpoints where we last left off using the FastAPI docs endpoint. And before we get started with actually creating our front-end directory, the last thing I want to do is just first of all shut down the backend server, and then I just want to add a endpoint. It's going to be a very basic endpoint, and this is what we'll use to kind of test that our front end is connecting well or connecting with our backend. So the first thing is app.get, and we'll just say API, and what we need is this will be our root directory or root endpoint, and what that will do is basically just return back a very simple message, which is async root, and then we can just do return and then message. We can say awesome leads manager. I can spell. That's it, and we could just actually run the server again and go back, see if it's working fine. And then here at the bottom, you may see at the bottom, it's the get/API. Try it out, execute, and there we go. Awesome leads manager. So yeah. So we'll use that endpoint in this video, and then next one we'll carry on with we'll just diving into the whole authentication and all that. So yeah, what we need to do now is actually, first of all, I want you guys to notice something, and that is here within the Explorer. You may have realized that I haven't opened up within the backend directory as in the last videos. I've opened up in the backend directory's parent directory, so React FastAPI. And the reason I've done that is because we're going to create a front-end directory, and that's basically going to hold our, front-end, our client, and that's going to have its own separate directory. Now, you'll see that in a second, and what I want to use to to do that is, let's just clear all this up, clear. So if we jump out, and then if I list them, you can see the backend, the README, and the license. And yeah, so I'm going to use npx or npx create React app to create our client. It's, it comes with all the boilerplate. We don't have to deal with the whole setup, as setting up React can be a bit of a hassle. So if you don't have npx, definitely install it. If you have your own way about creating a React front end, then feel free to do that. But in this video, I'll be using npx create React app. And just to reiterate, make sure you have both npm and npx installed globally, so you can run this command. So npx create React app, and then just front end, hit enter, give it a few minutes. It takes a while sometimes, or I think nearly all the time, but yeah. So now everything should be installed. I've CD'd into the front end. So from React FastAPI, CD front end, and we can go ahead and test it out by doing npm start. And once it's compiled, we should see our React intro page. So this here. So yeah, that's that. And the next thing I want to do is go ahead and install some dependencies. So we will need two of them, and well, the first one is Bulma, and Bulma is kind of like an alternative to Bootstrap, if you're familiar with Bootstrap. As we won't be focusing on styling, Bulma is a great option here, where we'll just be making use of the styling that comes here. It's very simple and elegant to use. So yeah, we'll go ahead and install that. So do npm install Bulma. And we also need moment. So moment is a kind of, we'll use it to format our dates. As when we create a lead, we have our last updated and all that, and we'll use moment to format that date so it shows up in kind of like a clean and human readable sort of format. So just npm install Bulma moment and just give that a few seconds or minutes again. So yeah, now if you go into your package JSON file, you'll see two new things in the dependencies object, which is Bulma and moment. So yeah, make sure you have that there, and to do that is just following those install command that I just ran. But yeah, now we can go ahead and do a bit of housekeeping. We can get rid of some files that we don't really need. So the first one, we can go ahead and delete this favicon. So move to trash. The index.html we of course need. However, we can remove some of the things that we don't from it. So this we can get rid of. And these logos we'll delete in a second. And finally, we can just change the title to Awesome Leads Manager. Yep, I'm just going to keep the comments in. And these logos here we can delete. So delete logo 192 and 512. Yep, move to trash. And then within the src file or folder, we can delete the CSS files. So we don't need app.css because we're going to be using Bulma. So delete that. App.js, we can go ahead and just remove these imports and change this to a more modern function. So const app, and then do that. We can just clean up the insides of the return function or return, and just do div. Oops. Because this isn't JSX, and we can rename this to a JSX file in a second, and just call this, just say hello world. And yeah, we can, within app.js, we can rename this to app.jsx. This is more of like a kind of preference for me. I like when it comes to React, if you're using JavaScript, then to name it JSX. App.test.js, we can delete that. Index.css, we can delete that as well. Index.js, we can just clean it up a bit. So we can remove that. We can remove the report web vitals. We can clean up this here as we don't need strict mode. And report web vitals we need to delete, of course, as well. Save it. So that's that. And then logo.svg, as we've deleted it, we can, or we've removed it, so we can delete it. This report web vitals we can delete as well. And then setup test.js we can delete too. So that should be fine. So now if I were to run this, fingers crossed, npm start, see what happens. Compile successfully and we get hello world. Nice. So that's this part. And then now we can go ahead and create kind of like a proxy or convenience when it comes to making requests to our API. So in package.json, we have all this, which you should have as well. So we have like the name, and then all the way to the bottom we have like our kind of scripts, browser list, and then at the bottom here underneath browser list we can add something like proxy. I can spell it, and this will be HTTP, oh, of course, comma, HTTP / localhost, and then port 8000, like that. As our API runs on port 8000, this runs on port 3000. So client side 3000, backend 8000, and this now, what this allows us to do now is when we make our request to our API, we would, if it weren't for this proxy, we would have to type in the whole HTTP and then / API / I don't know, leads. But this now kind of crunches it down to just simply something like that, rather than having to kind of prefix it with HTTP localhost port 1000. You can just do API leads, which makes it very, very convenient. So yeah, now we can just make sure that everything's smooth. We can just inspect it on the console, hopefully no errors, and yeah, we're good. So now we can go ahead and jump into like actually testing an API. So in app.jsx, we can go ahead and make some relevant imports. The first one is just more like as a preference. Like I don't think you need to import React anymore, but just to keep things as clear as possible. So import React from React, and then let's go ahead and create our message. So this is the message that we'll be getting from our root endpoint. And we can say message and then set message, and we can do use state, and this auto imports it for me, like Vim VS Code does that. Yours may do that as well, but yeah, you should have this import here within the curly brackets, and then just set that to an empty string. Now let's create a function that will actually make a request to this API, and we'll say const get welcome message, and this will be asynchronous, so async and then empty parameters. And yeah, so what this will do is make the request. So as our endpoint is asynchronous, we need this function to be asynchronous as well, and we can first go ahead and create our request options, and this will be an object, and we can say method is get, and headers will be another object, and we can say the content type will be application/JSON, like so. And that's it for the headers, and that's it for the request options. So now we can go ahead and actually make the request. So we can say const response equals await and fetch, which is /API, and this is where our proxy comes into handy, because if we didn't have it, we'd have to do the whole HTTP local request 8000 and then API. Now we can just do a clean /API and just throw in our request options, and we can say the data, so const data equals response.json, and we can just console log it for now. Say data, oops, just like that. So we actually need to call this function. Like right now it's not doing anything, so we can just say use effect, and this will be like that, and this is also auto imported for me, just like use state within the curly brackets. And yeah, so we can just set this to an empty array. So on mount, it'll do this, just called get welcome message. I think a more appropriate name, could not proxy API from, that's because we don't have the backend running. So just open up another terminal and then, yeah, just go into the backend. We need to run it. So UVI corn main :app -- reload. That gets our server up and running. And of course, the reason for this is we need to activate our virtual environment. So you can do source bin VNV bin activate, and then we can run UVI corn main :app. Yeah, so we go back to this one. We can just restart it, npm start. Hopefully no error. And we get a promise, and that's because we need to await for this as well. Hopefully that should do it. Yep. So just refresh, and here you get the message, which is awesome leads manager. And we can actually set this. Maybe we can actually keep this endpoint. I was just using it for testing, but it might be fun to just have it in anyway. What we can do is just do something like if the response is not okay, so we can do that, and then do console.log something mess up. I mean, like in reality, if you were to actually develop this properly, you'd probably use Axios rather than fetch as try catch. I mean, you could probably use a try catch here, but like yeah, Axios is just the API for that, or making use of that library is a lot easier. And we can just say otherwise. We can just set message to the data. Yeah, nothing's really gonna happen now, but you just make sure that everything's working. Message is assigned but never used. Yep, and that's because we don't make use of message. So we can say something like, I don't know, instead of hello world, we can actually just say the titles. So we can just put in message. This isn't complying because yeah, of course, I think we need like the actual data from it. Data.message should be enough. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, what was missing is, as data was just a kind of JavaScript object, we need to access a message from it. So set message data.message, and now we can just show the message. Yeah, the app isn't looking exactly like beautiful right now, but yeah, we'll go into styling and all that later on, actually using Bulma. But yeah, this is more so just setting up the like the connection between the front end and the back end. Now, like we can make a request to the API with just like the proxy, fetching it, making use of like the asynchronous side of it, and it's pretty simple with JavaScript is just await and async. But yeah, that's about it. In the next videos, we'll really be like pushing on with the app itself and making it look like something that can be thrown into production, although we won't be deploying it. But yeah, making it look a bit more professional and more easy on the eyes. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Again, I'm very sorry for the delay on this series, but yeah, it's full steam ahead. And yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next video.